morning. Those of you that are joining us live, a good afternoon or good evening if you happen to be listening back to this at a time that suits you rather than us. I'm Dr. Adam Reid. I am the Chief Sustainability and External Affairs Officer at Suez, and I'm your host for the remaining 59 minutes of what should be a jam-packed and very timely webinar all about circularity in practice, an initiative to deliver material change. And circularity seems to be on everybody's lips right now, partly because we haven't seen the circular economy growth plan yet. I believe it's doing its way around government as we speak. So post local government elections, fingers crossed. But more importantly, my panel were really busy in the past few weeks preparing for a hush hush launch at the Renew Hub up in Greater Manchester. So thanks to Mr. Scanlon, who's on the call today, for allowing us to use the site. But more importantly, His Majesty the King Charles III, was up there launching this new initiative, and we wanted to take this opportunity to share with you, the wider business audience, what we think is really important about not only this initiative, but why circularity is not only good news, it's essential opportunity for businesses going forward. So who have I got today? Who are my stellar cast? Well, we've got Mr. John Scanlon, my CEO. So I'll be absolutely on my best behaviour and only ask him the easiest questions. Hello, John. How are you?
Good, Adam. Nice to see you. It'll be the first time you've been on your best behaviour in a long while, so I look forward to seeing that.
That's what you said at my last performance review. We've got Dr. Greg Lavery, who's the Managing Director and Founder at Ripe Office, and Greg is a member of the Circular Economy Task Force, but he's not allowed to tell us anything about it. Isn't that right, Greg?
Exactly right, Adam. Yes, great to be here.
Good, and your backdrop is lovely. That's one of your recently designed office spaces by the looks of it.
Thank you, yes.
And finally, there's Bill Firth, who is the General Manager, Business Development at EMR. You are the metals and materials handlers, aren't you, Bill?
Yep, we are, Adam, and behind me is one of our recently designed workspaces as well. Actually, that's our facility in Amsterdam for anybody that's curious.
I just thought the wall in your home office had been knocked down overnight, and that was the best we could do.
I'd be in trouble if it was.
Well, welcome. So, circularity in practice, a new initiative, an important initiative, I think, because circularity has certainly got some popularity, but also I think it's got some challenges. The growth plan's slow launch, I think, is a concern to many of us. And I recognise that many businesses are finding it difficult to deliver circularity because they're part of a linear supply chain, and therefore they can't change without those changing around them. Something I hear a lot of. So I'm going to start. Where am I going to start? I'm going to start with Bill, aren't I? Bill, I guess the question is, tell me a little bit about circularity in practice as an initiative, and then tell me a little bit about EMR and why you and the business are involved in this initiative.
Yeah, we think it's really interesting. I've been in and around this industry for probably longer than I care to remember now, coming up to around 30 years, and I think where we tend to find initiatives that gather momentum, they sometimes fall back, or they're not significant to scale properly. And I think what's great about the circularity in practice is that hopefully this could become a national framework, if I can be so bold, almost a national movement where circularity really finds its place. And I think what we've been saying to organizations is that this is really here to amplify what's already being done. It's not to replace anything. We're not saying that we've got all of the best ideas, far from it. So I think from our perspective, we're really keen to learn, we're really keen to collaborate, but more so probably understand what we think the market needs and what others need. So yeah, we're really excited about this.
Good. And you've got a few slides you want to share with us.
Yeah, I've got a few slides just to really, from our perspective, give some sort of top level overview of the urban mine and its significance. So yeah, thanks, Manny, for clicking through in the background. So there's a bit of a bonus point to start with this one. If anybody in the Q&A can come back and say which city that is, that would be £5 from Dr. Adam Reed, actually, I think was the agreement we came to. So I think what I'm going to do with this one really is talk about where we see circularity being scaled and some of the activities that can do this. And very brief introduction to EMR. We're one of the world's largest mixed metal recycling companies, processing and recycling around 10 million tons of metals a year, and that includes steel, aluminium, copper, zinc, stainless, you name it, semi-precious metals as well, operating across North America, Europe, and the UK. And we're seeing some differences actually in those territories that I can touch on today. But what I'll do within the next couple of slides really is talk about the urban mine in the UK. So if Manny could click through, please.
And Bill, I've got an entry. Henry Irving says it's Leeds.
That's right, actually. So yeah, if Henry could send the bank details to you, Adam, that would be much appreciated.
Well done, Henry.
So yeah, what I've got is hopefully everybody's got their urban mine bingo card ready. I've just got a few numbers I'll read through, which hopefully provide some sort of useful information, oversight, and then a few thoughts beyond this really. So if we start in the top left-hand corner, and please don't take this as absolutely gospel to the ton, but I think they're illustrative. So if we consider from a UK building perspective, the amount of steel, copper, and aluminium within those structures, it's looking like there's around 559 million tons within there. And then if you kind of think about how much do we use within a year within the sort of building stock of those materials, again, that just comes over kind of 2,300,000 tons. So again, the scales are quite enormous, really. If you look at the demand then profiles across steel, aluminium, and copper, and if we only recovered 50% of the 559 million tons of materials available to us, that would equate to 476 years worth of supply of those materials. If we then think about carbon avoidance through the generation, through retention, recycling, and reuse of those materials, we're looking at over 500 million tons of potentially carbon being avoided. So not only do we have resources available to us from a carbon perspective that is so significant, I think some of the numbers that we looked at is probably more than a year's worth of the UK's entire annual carbon budget. So moving on to the next number there, 2030. So 2030 is when it's been estimated that we'll reach peak copper globally. So at that point, the known copper reserves will be at a stage where the demand will actually begin to outstrip supply. And various reports are suggesting that there could be a 10 million ton shortfall of copper by 2040. So looking at various ways of either becoming much more resource efficient around copper, substituting other materials, and again, how do we make sure that we can flow copper through from the urban mine to try and manage that sort of shortfall? And then staying with copper, if we look at copper as a source, as an extracted material from mining, a typical efficient copper mine will have a copper-rich concentration of about 0.62%. So the most efficient mines are operating at that level. So to produce a ton of copper from a copper mine, they're actually processing about 160 tons of material to produce 1 ton of copper. The urban mine is allowing us to produce and recycle copper in the region of about 99%. So if we take the half of the UK's copper within buildings, if we equated that to how that would be produced from mines, you're looking at 2.5 billion tons of material, equivalent to the 16 million tons of copper just within UK buildings. So hopefully that sets the scene really in terms of the significant size and also I think the opportunity that the urban mine could present itself around three primary construction materials. So if Manny could just click through, that'd be great. So again, these are questions, and I'm not promising to deliver all of the answers here, but this is something that we've been asking ourselves and others in the supply chain. Really, it's how do we best make use of everything which is available to us within that urban mine? Is it something that we've tended to overlook at times and not value properly? I think what we're finding and what we're seeing that's really encouraging is looking at circular strategies that include retention, reuse, and recycling. And I don't think it needs to be an or question, that one. I think all three of those can sit side by side very well. And I think where we've seen that this is working well is firstly understand what you have available to you within your asset, within the structure, then making a plan and then executing the plan. And again, hopefully this is where circularity in practice can really assist with organizations that are doing this and sort of leading in certain areas. And then some really interesting opportunities which are sort of coming to us quite quickly is how can particularly from a recycling perspective, how can we add further value by improving the quality of what we produce? Can we start to move from can we eliminate downcycling? Can we move towards higher quality open loops? Can we close the loops? We're closing a lot of loops with steel companies, copper companies, and aluminium companies, and I think that's a really, really interesting area as asset owners look at taking more care and attention and doing good with their materials. And we're seeing that just very recently with UK steel strategy was just released, and within that there's a large section there about high quality scrap metal production within the UK, feeding Tata's proposed electric arc furnace in South Wales to create high quality, high value products, which is going to require further improvement in processing, segregation, but it all starts with understanding what's in the structure initially so that we can manage those materials through that value added process. And again, point 6 there, to do this, it needs a supply chain to really come together and sort of move as one. And we see circularity in practice being a really good opportunity. And then lastly, it's a philosophical question, I suppose, really, is that every kilo of material which doesn't come from recycled sources, and I appreciate there's a shortfall, and you can't just recycle material, but we're continuing to go back and ask the planet to give up more resources and more materials for us. And should we actually begin to value more the material that's gone through that process, and in effect then we become better custodians and extend life and keep looping those materials and start to take the pressure off the only planet that we have. So that's thoughts from me.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Bill. Audience, keep those questions coming in. Look for the question tab at the top, enter them in, and we can make sure I get your questions fed into Bill and the team. So the opportunity's there. You're big business, mate. You do this anyway, don't you? Because you see the financial benefits as much as you see, the social benefits, perhaps. But how is the supply chain that you work with reacting to your push in a more circular, resource-constrained world?
I think what's really interesting, Adam, we seem to be moving from reaching maturity around carbon, and everybody's had I think rightfully so had a sort of focus on carbon. But I think as organizations with supply chain constraints, resource resilience, they're beginning to look at what they already have within their ownership and beginning to sort of understand that that there's a value to that material beyond which was probably recognized previously, in terms of how can they manage that, how can they allow others to manage that, what can those materials be put to. And we're seeing some particularly sort of good work in around London and their circular economy statements around developing plans that really do make the best use of those materials, and finding that that's allowing the engineering team, the development teams to actually say, hey, what do we have, what do we retain, what do we reuse, and then how do we recycle the balance and create this structure into a genuine material bank. So I think we're seeing that coming through, but I think there's much more opportunity to actually take that sort of philosophy and apply that more widely.
And just a quick touch on something like material segregation. Given that it's all about the quality of the materials that you can handle, is this a game of more skips, more containers, better behaviour, or is there technology innovation, or is it really about the circularity of the entire business model? I'm guessing, where's the attention got to sit for you as a business?
Yeah, so it's a really good question. I think it has to be systemic. So we can definitely accommodate mixed metals coming through to us. But if we do that, there's additional processing cost, there's additional time and effort to do that, and with some simple changes, really around on site. So a really good example, what we're looking to do now is, for example, with steel materials coming out, is looking at where we can moving towards separating steel sections from rebar material. And by doing that, we've got very different chemistries coming into the business then, which allows us to then put those back into what we would call low residual grades, allowing electric arc furnaces to produce high quality products. Whereas if you mix it from the start, you then got a question of, you've got to separate that again. You put cost in. Are you delivering the value back to the customer ultimately? Whereas if you have that sort of simple change and understand what you have from the starting position, it can make a real difference. So not a big change in terms of practice, more of a sort of considered plan, I would say.
Okay, there's loads more questions coming in, very specific to steel, which I'm going to park for the moment because I want to start moving down or with the supply chain. So let's bring Greg in. He's been sitting there quietly, which is unlike Greg. I've spent a few days with him recently, and he does want to get his voice heard, which is great because he's a huge advocate for circularity. So Greg, it's an absolute pleasure to host you. Lovely picture of you there up at the hub doing your thing. Greg, tell us a little bit about what you and Ripe Office have got involved in this initiative, because you were there from day one. I think you were in the room with me at that first meeting. And what does it mean for you and your business?
Yeah, thanks, Adam. I've got just one number, so I'm not going to put a slide up, and that one number is 300 tons. That is the amount that every single working day in the UK, the amount of furniture that goes to landfill. Every day. Imagine how many lorries that is to take 300 tons of furniture off to landlord. And the Waste Reduction Action Program, RAP, has estimated that something like 80-something% of that is perfectly good furniture. So the numbers are absolutely astonishing. And by the way, there's another 200 that goes off to recycling, which is not a really good outcome for high quality furniture. So 10 years ago, we looked at that and went, hang on, with a bit of material science here, we can bring furniture back to as new condition. And so we set about doing that, and nowadays we are exactly doing that. And so what we've done is we've evolved our business model from just remanufacturing to a whole sort of supply chain extension, I suppose. So we start by saying, look, have you got any furniture you don't want anymore? We can solve that 300 tons a day to some extent. And help you in a way that's cheaper than sending it to landfill. So why wouldn't you do that? We've also got a design team that can design an office, and we've got a whole delivery side. We've got workshops, and we're even doing interesting things like leasing, because if you're a serviced office provider, the last thing you want to do is spend £1 million on furniture before you get your first customer in the door, because they pay per month. So we've got leasing systems to be able to essentially take the furniture on a per pounds per square foot per month basis, and we'll do a full service of that, and we'll even take it back at the end, all wrapped up in that one monthly fee. So there's all sorts of interesting things going on, and what I wanted to impress really is that the quality is just incredible that we're achieving, because we've been doing it for 10 years, and we are repowder coating. We won a grant quite a few years ago now from the Innovate UK to figure out how to take a scratch out of plastic. That sounds incredibly easy, but we wouldn't have got the grant if someone had already done it before, because no one's been concerned with scrap. It all has traditionally been sent off to landfill. So we've pulled all these different techniques together to deal with steel and plastic and wood and all the other things that you find in furniture. And I'd like to share a couple of slides of what it actually looks like, because what we find is that the proof of the pudding's in the eating. So it's really nice to see what the finished product looked like, and we've included a few statistics as well. So Maddie, if you could sort of skip over that one. So here's a project we did quite a few years ago in JLL's Manchester office. If anyone wants to see that, that's in the Landmark building. Obviously it's not our space, but with JLL's permission, you can see an example here of furniture that's had a previous life. All of that's was reupholstered, a new tabletops put in, powder coated, whatever. It looked completely different from the original stuff that we had. A decent saving there on a medium-sized office with some nice savings in carbon and waste as well. And a key question we get asked quite often, I'm sure you're probably going to ask it if I don't answer it in advance, Adam, which is why circular economy and why now? Well, we're seeing three key themes emerging that are really driving the circular economy. One is just pounds. No one's got as much money as they used to have. Everything's a lot more expensive. Budgets are under pressure. Well, if you want to pay 20 to 30% for all new stuff when it's going to look and perform exactly the same as remanufactured, then go for it, right? But not many people have those budgets these days. And especially with pre-COVID, people bought a lot of furniture, wasn't sat on during COVID. Agile and home-based working has meant still not had a lot of use. It's perfectly good, except it's no longer in the corporate colors. Fine, we can reupholster it, powder coat, and all those sorts of things. Second big theme, resource constraints. We're in yet another war, all of which disrupt supply chains and push prices up, but also make it much more difficult to hit tight deadlines if you're looking to move into a space in a hurry, which many people are. And then, of course, the climate crisis hasn't gone anywhere, where it's still there, and the government needs to hit its carbon legally bound carbon targets, and that will then flow through in all sorts of mechanisms to drive carbon. Even if an organisation doesn't particularly have a plan around that, they'll still have to do something. And for example, one of the parts of the Circular Economy Task Force's remit, which I was fortunate to be part of, is the government buying standards are changing. Because the circular economy, the government's recognised those three factors are very important and has said, fine, we'll just change the government buying standards to drive change. So this is a wave that's coming. Next slide, please, Maddie. Let me show you another example. This is Howard de Walden Estate, which is a very wealthy family office that owns 850 buildings in Marylebone. We managed to save them £300,000. And we hit 94% second life furniture. I think that's what it says. I have to put my specs on. Yeah, the 94% second life furniture. Much of that came from their old office, but on the other hand, we transformed that a lot in terms of remanufacturing. I think I've got one more example, Maddie. Thanks. So BP Pulse, when they redid their office, in fact, create a whole new office when they bought ChargeMaster, now known as Pulse. They got us in because they wanted a really sustainable fit out for that. We saved them also another £300,000 there. Another high percentage second life furniture from around the BP network. We found lots of rooms of furniture that was stored that was too good to throw away, but not good enough to actually reuse in another office. So we took that, reupholstered it, remanufactured it, designed it all, and put it in for this office as well. So hopefully what you're seeing through these images is that there is no aesthetic compromise, and we find that's one of the biggest barriers in a very aesthetic driven industry. Is a lot of people say, oh look, I don't want a shoddy looking office full of furniture when I'm spending the money creating a new space that's really important. And that's why we put design into it, and that's why we work very hard on that material science. And if it doesn't look as good as new, well, it doesn't get out the back of our shed, because our remanufacturing process very quality led to make sure that we're delivering that high level of quality just the same as new, and our clients can't tell the difference unless they know the history. Thanks, Maddie. The final slide, that was what was we exhibited to His Majesty the King and the first 60 or so signatories of the pledge at the Suez Renew Hub last week. We put together with a whole bunch of other suppliers, by the way, it's really just our furniture and flooring here, a tiny little module which is sort of an example of all of the different materials that can be second life. So we've got a raised flooring system, the raised flooring tiles, the carpet, all of the furniture, the plant, even the plant second life, believe it or not, it was elsewhere. Lab, the paint is recycled paint. Those brick slips that make up that wall were formerly big stone slabs that were all chipped, that were cut down to make into bricks. The glass in that window is recycled by Saint-Gobain. Even the aluminium frame for that was from Hydro. So it's all recycled aluminium as well, and you can't quite see it, but the ceiling tiles as well, that whole ceiling system is second life as well. And what we're trying to prove here is that it's really easily doable to get a high quality finish across all aspects of a fit out. And that's what we're seeing is big organizations like JLL are now saying, right, we're going to do all our offices like this. It's all going to be circular, and we're going to drive that really hard, which is being supported by the likes of the UK Net Zero Carbon Building Standard, which is now on its first final release. It's in version 1 that came out a couple of weeks ago. British standards have its, British Land has its sustainable, got to remember, sustainability brief for office fit outs, I think they call it. Wonderful document that anyone can use that basically says, for our fit outs, this is what we want to achieve. And there's a huge amount of circularity in that, and some really aggressive targets for the short term and the medium and long term. A really well put together document that says, this is all doable, let's just get on with it. I think that's all I got to say, Adam, and welcome the questions from the audience.
And the questions are flowing. So you've started to stimulate quite a bit of debate here, Greg. Thank you. I mean, really powerful stuff. The imagery for me is everything, isn't it? If it, as you said, aesthetics. If it looks good, people want to buy into it. If it looks good and it is good, well, now we've got an interesting opportunity, haven't we, to start to bring any consumer, whether that's big business, your examples, or my mum, buying the kinds of thing that have got a more circular story to them. And actually, a couple of the audience have already said, wooden furniture. Does it get any better than wooden furniture from a circular perspective? I mean, there's a question for you.
Yeah, I mean, so wood has its good parts and bad parts. I mean, beautifully designed, Fritz Hansen, some of those Scandi style sort of kitchen chairs are brilliant, right? And we love them. However, wood's also been turned into quite an evil substance as well. So you've got IKEA making essentially cardboard furniture that doesn't last very long, and you can't reinforce as it starts to get a bit wobbly. Some of those horrible wooden frame chairs that are used a lot in hospitals, the joints just don't survive very well. So they after a bit of wear and tear, there's nothing you can do to stiffen them anymore. And one of the biggest areas of concern is melamine faced chipboard, which is what most desktops are. We've got a love-hate relationship with it, because when we try and recycle it, we keep getting feedback that yes, we can technically recycle, but what you get is wood dust, and there is no market for wood dust. So no one economically recycles tops. So they end up, best case, going to waste to energy, which I suppose is a legitimate outcome. However, that's releasing the carbon. However, locking up a forest and putting it into a product is a great thing, and melamine faced chipboard remains a really hardy product. So our approach is, we'll take a lot of tops and we'll reject a lot of them that have damage to them. We've got a couple of solutions to completely reface them in ways that makes them good as new, and we cut out any damage around the sides and make smaller tops. So we tend to remanufacture a lot of tops as well in order to keep that carbon stored. But yeah, it's an interesting material. Key thing is, if you buy good quality wood furniture, that can last for a really long time. But if it's poor quality, then you're essentially just consigning that to best case waste to energy.
Thank you. And I think quality is a theme that both you and Bill have picked up in different ways. So I think quality is going to run through this conversation, because it's investing in quality, keeps quality, delivers quality, opens doors for quality outputs, which I think is really important. More questions for you in a minute, Greg, because I want to get some other opinions. So, John, welcome. You've been sitting quietly. How are you?
Yeah, very good, Adam. Very good.
So, hidden in this picture, I think the king was kind of lurking at this point. So, give me some reflections. I mean, you got to spend an inordinate amount of time with His Majesty wandering around the Renew Hub, talking all things circularity. I mean, this is my day job, and I don't get that opportunity very often. So just tell me, what were you telling him, and how was he receiving it?
Yeah, I mean, I think firstly, what a great honour and privilege it was for us all to be there and to have the King come to kind of endorse the launch of Circularity in practice. I think that was a fantastic moment. I think the other thing that I would say is that he was really interested in everything that was being done in terms of how we were trying to stop materials end up in a waste stream and give them a second life, and all the opportunities and solutions that could come as a consequence of that. And so, many people may have been to the Renew Hub in Manchester, but I guess a lot haven't as well. So it's maybe worth saying a quick word on that. It's a pretty much unique site, I would say, in the UK. It's a big site. It's about the size of a professional football pitch. And we have the fortune, because of that size, to do lots of really cool stuff there. So we can kind of repair and recycle, reuse white goods, so washing machines, lots of kind of electrical items. It was really interesting to listen to that discussion on wood, because one of the things that we get a lot of in the Renew Hub is really good quality wood items that people have decided they don't want anymore. Maybe because they're very dark brown and they're not trendy anymore, but super great quality. And we're able to take those and kind of repurpose, relove, and put them out for sale again. So that's fantastic. Unbelievable number of bikes. That's one of the things that we see, thousands of bikes every year coming through the site. And again, lots of stuff. It was great to see your images, because again, I think if you'd shown the audience those images and said, is this brand new or reused, it's pretty difficult to tell, isn't it? And so again, we do lots of upholstery, can produce some really kind of groovy stuff that we can kind of sell out to members of the public at really affordable prices. So the King was really interested about the flow of all of this, and where does the material come from, and where does it ultimately end up? What's the benefits that come? And again, not just in terms of materials that come through the public sector, but now how is that being embraced by the private sector and other businesses who also come along to see the site and think, wow, this is great. And they have that light bulb moment, as Greg talks about, in terms of maybe we can kind of bring some of this material, this furniture, these other items, and utilize them in our own business. And I think the other thing that's really great is we now see lots of businesses start to think themselves about, when they have some item that's no longer useful to them, maybe where they may have disposed of it in the past. And, Greg, I'll kind of defend any different waste. I think it's a fantastic solution. We do quite a lot of that. But of course, we want to do more recycling and more reuse. So it's great to see companies coming along saying, okay, well, what more can I do? And what's a better route to get somebody else to get some value out of this? So it was all those types of messages that were being passed along and were really being very well received. And I think the other thing, Adam, very quick final word, I guess, is to say, everybody can imagine, when the King is coming to visit, it is controlled kind of second by second. I think he was scheduled to be with us for around 45 minutes, and very quickly the schedule was kind of blown out of the water because he was so intrigued and interested in everything that he was seeing. And so we had him for well over an hour, which is a fantastic thing to say, which again was just an insight to his interest in the topic.
I mean, it was great. I mean, I know Bill and Greg met him as well, and he was more than happy to stop and talk about, what you're doing and the opportunities and the material flows. And it was good to be able to showcase, a bit like Greg's done with his imagery today, but we had some of our pods on show, showcasing lifestyles and how all of this repurposed material can look fantastic. And I think he kind of really warmed to that, because it's demonstrating the art of the possible. And I think all of us on this panel today are all about demonstrating the art of the possible, because that's how you get consumers, whether that's business or my mum, to buy into wanting the quality that we're offering. So John, why did Suez get involved on day one? Because I know you're really passionate about repair and reuse. We've got this hub, and we're driving shops up and down the country to pull more and more material out of our HWRCs, the recycling centres. But we're a waste management business. So is this just a fancy?
It's absolutely not just a fancy. I mean, it's something we've been working on. You look at reuse for a long time now. And I think, as I was reflecting, I think if I think around COVID, I think we really kind of had an even greater focus on reuse, because the benefit that can bring in terms of social value. We were looking at the time of COVID, which was really unsettling for so many people, and nobody really knew at the time, start of 2020, what's the outcome going to be. And as a company, we had a real kind of view of, well, let's try and be really fair to employees, to customers, to suppliers, and also how can we help our community? So again, it was this focus on social value. And so reuse is really at the kind of heart of that for us. And you've mentioned reuse shops. So we have the big Renew hub in Manchester, but we have 46 shops up and down the country, as far north as Aberdeen, as far south as Cornwall, selling reused items. That'll be over 50 this year. The kind of appetite from kind of customers and consumers and our employees is not abating at all. Everybody wants to do more. So I think from my point of view, it was a really kind of natural progression when we heard and had the opportunity to be involved in circularity in practice right at the outset. And again, you know, is it a fad? Is it a fancy? Well, absolutely not. For the point that Bill and Greg have both made, you know, we have to be more, you know, renewable. We have to do better things for the planet. But it's not just about that. It makes good commercial sense as well. I mean, I hear the points from Greg and Bill about rather than disposing of these things at a cost, you know, let's find a different route. And again, if I just look at the Renew Hub, we have about 125,000 items every year that would have been thrown away that we're able to give a second life to. And what we do with those things, we then sell all of those items, and that money goes into a fund, and that fund provides £100,000 to the Mayor's charity in Manchester, which is about homelessness on the streets of Manchester, so a fantastic charity, and £220,000 every year on other environmental charities in the region. So again, it's just fantastic at every step. So it's absolutely not a fad, and it's absolutely you know, something we'll continue to do going forward, more and more.
Very, very good. So when you got the phone call about this initiative that didn't have a name, and we didn't even know what the focus was going to be, knew that King Charles was keen on the waste management agenda. How do we turn that initial conversation into circularity in practice and the drive to make all of these material flows that little bit easier for other businesses to get involved with? And I know that's a tough question, so I'm going to ask Bill first, because he was in the room on that day one as well. So just quickly, Bill, you know, what did we have to do? Because there was a few of us, wasn't there, that were scratching our heads going, what have we got in common?
I thought when I first went in the room, are we in trouble? Because there was kind of it was a really interesting sort of supply chain mix, actually. And I thought that was really interesting. So we had organizations like ourselves that probably more traditionally, you know, sit at the end of some of the supply chains. Although John's talking there, you know, about the reuse and how we can. But then we had, you know, we had manufacturers, we had companies like Greg from an upcycling perspective where materials don't even enter the waste supply chain. We had platform businesses, we had house builders, and I think what was really interesting, it was very quickly you could see that the supply chain needed to come together to make this happen. So I think we've all been doing our own bits, haven't we? And you know, we're fortunate enough that, you know, we're both sizable businesses, but we just can't do this in isolation because we'll just keep doing what we've always done. And then I think the supply chain is, you know, they need to become, I think, more partnerships. And so I think, you know, looking at how we can, you know, join this initiative and learn from what other companies are doing for us is fascinating. So, you know, we you know, again, some great conversations happened and ongoing.
You're absolutely right, and for a while we're not quite sure what this is going to be, but we knew there was enough passion and desire to make this want to work in a private sector setting, which I think was really important from day one. All of us went, this is private sector. This is not about the stuff that, you know, John and I work on a daily basis with municipal flows. This was commercial, because that was where we saw an opportunity that really wasn't being addressed. And I guess, Greg, the question is, we've had a launch in Manchester. The Manchester supply chain came out. We've got 100 signatories, you know, all already with the pledge to you know, put circularity into practice. So where does this initiative go now, next? And, you know, some of the people on the call are probably thinking, what do I need to do?
Yeah, good question. And I think to build on Bill's point, when we were first in the room, what we realized is there's probably 100 years of combined experience of all the initial sort of group of people who were getting together. And we'd seen a lot of things tried and failed by less experienced people putting ideas, really good ideas, but not succeeding in following through with those just because they'd not really done much in the circular economy before. So when we put our heads together, what we realized is actually it's not about having your brand appear on a website, and it's not about signing a pledge. I mean, the pledge is essentially a guidance, right? It's all about taking that first step. And what we discovered very long ago, and you saw, for instance, that JLL project that we did in Manchester. We subsequently did one in central London, in Canary Wharf, sorry, a massive project for them. And they've gone on to do even better things with and without us in other projects. It all starts with a small pilot. Let's get a trial done. And we love doing things like with someone, and for JLL, it was literally a meeting room in their Warwick Street offices in Soho. They basically said that the chap who was the estates manager said, look, I'm not going to tell anyone about this. I'm just going to do it and see what people say. So we went in, we did the office, and then there was this sort of moment where he was very nervous, and he showed the team who didn't know anything in the history of this room or the sustainability of it. And they walked in and they went, yeah, new office, new meeting room, job done. And he was both deflated and elated at the same time, because he expected them to jump up and down and hug him and say, you've done something super sustainable. But actually, the fact that they didn't know the difference between the fact that it was new and the fact it was 100% remanufactured furniture, actually he went, that's incredible. This is incredibly powerful. So to satisfy that problem of communicating, he put a sign on the wall that basically said, all of this furniture is remanufactured. We're doing a great job as your estates team, right? So all of that was hilarious. But that point is, it's got to start somewhere with a first step. And what we were really keen to do was to help those who are interested in the circular economy to get started. And what we found is that when we talk to each other and when we talk to our let's say peer organizations who we see on construction sites every week who are doing really good work, and I'll give you an example, Paint 360, they take old cans of paint. The average figure is that your average household has 7 half tins of paint under a sink or in a cupboard somewhere, guilty myself. They take all of that paint and then recycle that into new paint that's fantastic and has all in the UK, creating jobs with a really low carbon footprint and some really great mold inhibiting agents that they put into that as well. So there's an example amongst our peers of yet another solution. So what we've done on this for the circularity in practice, there's a page that's called Solutions, and it's got all of the different providers to the exhibit that you saw that I talked about a minute ago, that you saw a photo of from the hub the other day. All of the providers are there, and we know them really well, and they're all super friendly organizations. So if you want to start somewhere, and one of those topics, and they're all grouped by topic, whether it's metal recycling or waste management or even design. So ORMS, the architectural practice, has been part of the group since the start. There's links there you can click on, go to the website, and all of those organizations are super friendly and happy to help, and recognize that most customers don't really understand the circular economy and are starting out. Some of them have wonderful sustainability people that get it, and in which case treat those solution providers as a resource to help you drive circularity with a first pilot project.
Really positive. And we'll put up some of those details before the end of this session to give people a start of it. And all of the slides from today will be available to the audience after the event. So don't worry, you'll have lots of guidance available to you. John, it's regional and it's national. You know, we've set up an initiative that, you know, is fledgling. It's got decent brands involved, and we want to move it forward. Some of those early signatories are impressive organisations. But it's also got that kind of regional footprint. This worked really well because it was Manchester. It was the Manchester ecosystem. We had Manchester examples, and therefore businesses were talking to their peers, you know, maybe on the same estate or, you know, maybe from the other side of town. But it worked because of scale. The question I've got, are we taking that to another geography? And if so, do we know what it's going to be yet? And do you think that is a replicable model in a geography yet to be named?
Yeah, thank you, Adam. And I'm just going to quickly come back and reflect on a couple of points that Greg made, because I think circularity in practice is a fantastic name, because that's truly what this initiative is driving. And I think back to bringing some of the kind of businesses together. You know, ORMS was mentioned. You know, when we speak to ORMS and they see some of the stuff that's being done, and they say, okay, well, let's use a lot more reusable furniture in their project. So immediately action is being taken. We then see on the day when the King came to the site, we had an amazing 3D printer on site, printing out lounge chairs and things of this nature. And when we talk to them about, you know, what are they making from, it's, you know, one of the base components is sugar. okay, that's interesting. And as a company, we're looking at, okay, well, how can we, through our R&D center, convert cardboard fiber that isn't suitable for recycling into something else, into sugar? And so we start to put these links together. So I think that's really important. It's actually working. It's not just about talking. I think, again, coming back to the point of pilots, I think we can all do something today and tomorrow. Every little thing has a big impact. Again, we look from our view of the world about when people decide to kind of throw something away. If every household puts 2 items into reuse each year, that is a huge opportunity. You know, that would be millions of pounds of funding back into communities. Our calculations show that would create 75,000 jobs for people throughout the country, and they are kind of dispersed all around the UK. And again, to your point, Adam, I think we've had a fantastic launch in Manchester. I think the next step is where are we going now? It feels like Bristol, Southwest is a really good place to go as well. Lots of companies really interested already in circularity. And so I think we can embrace that. But I think the point is, you know, what we need to do is by looking at who has already signed to circularity in practice, how can you as a business make a link with somebody that can help you do something now, small, quickly, as part of your journey? Because if everybody's doing stuff, we can have a big impact together.
Strong messages. Bill, anything from your perspective in terms of the next steps going forward? Let's give the audience something they can get stuck into. What are we going to ask them to do or join us on?
I think just starting small, Adam. I think that you know, first step is often, you know, can seem like a bit of a daunting. It can, you know, circular economy. What does it mean? It's you know, can be diffuse. It's, you know, nebulous. It's, you know, I think it's what do we have within our ownership? What is potentially coming to its end of life or first life, and then taking a step back and then thinking, what are the alternative management pathways for these materials? And then, as Greg indicated, that, you know, you're probably fortunate enough already with the signatories. I can't think of too many materials or products which already fall outside of scope. So I think organizations look at what you have, and then reach out, contact, and then just begin to have conversations. And I don't think this is even moving to, you know, anything that on a cost basis, on a contractual basis. We really want to encourage these conversations, these learning examples. You know, we're really keen to learn here. You know, not all the bright people work for EMR, you know, far from it. You know, what are others doing that we can, you know, learn from? So I think it's really just as simple as that. Taking a step back, what do you have, and then having those conversations.
Thanks, Bill. I can guarantee they don't all work for EMR because they're on the stage and they've got different affiliations associated with them. But nice point. I'm going to go into quick fire round in a moment because we're running out of time. But let's ask a poll question. I'm interested in where we are in the audience. So, audience, I need you to work hard for the next 30 seconds. Pick the answer that closely resembles your position right now. Are you a business, ideally, but I'll take any organisation, planning on signing this pledge? Yes, I've already done it. Yes, we're going to sign it after this meeting. I'm going to go back and chat to the team, maybe. No, it just isn't for us. So whilst you're voting on that, hopefully it's come up and everybody can see it. Yeah, that's great. Quick questions then. Here we go. Ready? Quick fire. Greg, get your mics on, boys. Greg, carpets, in or out of scope?
Carpet tiles are great because they're modular. They can be taken up, reused, clean, not a problem. Broadloom, a bit more difficult.
Thank you. Bill, urban mining. Are we going to see it anytime soon?
Well, interesting. I think we've been seeing it for thousands of years, actually. If you go back and look at what the Egyptians and Romans were doing, we've been urban mining. I think probably what we haven't done is probably, you know, hold it that in its full proper context and have a managed approach to it. So yeah, we think we will. We're seeing it. We just need to see it a bit more.
Remember, quick fire round, Bill. I don't need a paragraph. John, landfill mining, is it going to happen?
I don't see it happening anytime soon. Is my short answer. Maybe in the future, but I think that it's quite a challenge. And I think, as Bill has already mentioned, you know, there are huge amounts of resources that we can already access without landfill.
Okay, and one final one from each of you, and you've got, I want one answer and one answer only. What is your top tip, Greg, for an organisation that wants to do a bit more circularity in its building and fit out space?
Yeah, and I'm biased on this one. So JLL presented recently at a conference, and they said the easiest thing to do that will create the biggest carbon savings and cost savings is go furniture circular. So think about what you've got right now, what you need going forwards, and make that connection through via remanufacturing.
Right. Bill, what's your one suggestion for businesses that want to do a bit more quickly?
Have a look at what you've got, make a plan, reach out.
John?
I think it's easy. I think it's whenever you have something that you need to dispose of, think of, can I reuse it? And similar, when you're procuring, can I go down a reuse option?
Okay, I'm going to put the results up. John, what do you think? Oh, how positive do you think this audience is? I mean, remember, it's Friday. They're joining live. How positive do you think this audience is in terms of where they are with signing up to this pledge?
Well, I saw in the background. I don't know if it was intended, but I could see the poll, so I kind of I have a bit of insight. So great that 10% have already signed up. I would say. Let's hope that when we chat to the team, we can kind of improve that a bit further. I mean, I can't say, for people that 17% that say it's not for them. Well, clearly that's up to them. But for me personally, I say, well, why wouldn't it be? You're having a positive impact on the planet. You're saving money. And the other thing that I can say is, from a business point of view, it's hugely engaging for your teams. Hugely engaging to be doing stuff that's more circular. So for me, it's a no-brainer. But yeah, maybe it's not for everyone.
Greg, any thoughts on the way that poll split out?
Yeah, generally positive. I mean, we at the end of the day, this is a new paradigm. The circular economy is a new paradigm, and I won't go into. I know that's an overused term. I studied in my PhD the whole paradigmatic shifts per Thomas Kuhn, who invented the term. And inevitably, there's an adoption curve. So there'll always be people who's slow to come to something. To give you an idea, Rolls-Royce, every single one of its Trent Aero engines is a circular model. They don't sell them anymore. So the circuit, whether you like it or not, photocopies in offices. Did you know that the average large photocopier is in 8 different offices? It gets remanufactured loads and loads of time. So the circular economy is coming to you whether you like it or not. The question is, are you going to take the business advantages that presents, and the personal advantages as well, frankly, that presents, or not, right? And we've got to recognize that some people aren't ready for it.
Okay, some big questions coming in now. Last 5 minutes. So, John, how does circularity in practice align with and potentially encourage and support the circular economy growth plan coming out sometime soon? Are they aligned? Are they independent? I'm not asking Greg specifically because, of course, he signed an NDA and is sitting on that task force. So, John, what's your thinking on this?
Well, I mean, I absolutely hope they are aligned. I mean, it's a little bit difficult because we've not seen the circular economy growth plan yet, but it's hard to imagine that they're not aligned because of all the things that we've already discussed about how can we kind of keep these materials back in utilization, how can we keep the ongoing benefits, and how do we help protect the planet?
Yeah, can I add to that, Adam? I mean, there's some things I can say. I mean, remember the Circular Economy Growth Down is a government-led initiative that involves, and what can the government influence? Well, it can influence policies, tax, regulations, those sorts of things. What it can't do, and what circularity in practice really complements, is that the government can't say, right, why don't you make a change? All it can do is force that change through top-down mechanisms. What circularity in practice does is really starts at the cutting edge of where businesses are right now, and now enables them and encourages them to make that first step, which is entirely complementary with a country that's changing. And what's more, taking action now through the Circularity in Practice initiative is actually a good head start for when the government's changes do land, hopefully in May after the local government elections.
And as somebody that's closely involved with both organisations, we were very conscious as Circularity in Practice to not go down an avenue that we knew that the growth plan wanted to focus on or wanted to draw attention to. Hence the business focus, and hence the real world pilot examples, the regional dimension, the bottom up enablement, because we felt that was something that wasn't going to come from the growth plan the way that we've been engaging with it up to that point. So hopefully, those of you that are worried, it should be complementary, and more importantly, it should give you real world examples to be getting on with whilst we're getting the strategy and the direction of travel right. Bill, is it easy to decide if metals coming into you should go to recovery, recycling, repurposing? I mean, is that an easy thing? People are going, how do you make sure the materials go to the right place?
Yeah, I think we've got direct experience of this. We run a reusable steel business and still very much interested in that supply chain. There are organisations out there doing this on a daily basis, Adam, that are coming in, looking at structures from both at the as-built drawings as well as walking around and doing an assessment, and then those material management pathways then come out of the types of materials, the qualities, the length, the weight, the ages. So quite quickly, you can then start to form those plans. So it is achievable, and we're seeing quite a few companies doing that now.
Good. Someone just asked, is there a website? Oh, that's my next slide. Quick one for you, John. Is waste legislation preventing progress in this space? And if so, what are we doing about it?
I think we can say it is preventing, and not just waste legislation. I think that one of the things that we call for is an abolition of VAT on reused goods. So I think that would help give people another driver to look at reuse. So I think that would be a real help. I think the other thing that we see is the right to repair legislation isn't as strong in the UK as it is in Europe, for example. I think often these days, if you have whatever it is and it is damaged, you think it's easier to throw it away than repair it. That's not the same in Europe. So I think we need a better legislation to support us there. And I think the other final thing that I would say, if I just look at the Manchester example, I know we're focusing a bit on business, but the public sector has a big role to play. I think you see Greater Manchester really drive circularity in its contract when it has an evaluation that chooses the contractor based upon 15% on social value, which we mentioned is very closely linked to reuse. So I think there are opportunities to make it better for sure.
Really positive. Right, we're into the last couple of minutes. Maddie, next slide, please. Chaps, what is one takeaway message is what I'm going to ask you for, but remember, it has to fit on the chest of my recycled t-shirt, and it has to have a hashtag in front of it. But before you do, I'll give you a thinking point. Here's the link will be in the slides. We'll be circulating them. You can get to the website. As Greg says, look, there's some information. We're putting more information on there. Lots of FAQs are going on there, and we'll start to put more insight into the project and the program as we go forward. It's early days, but that doesn't stop you getting involved. Right, my ask for you is sign the pledge, or if you can't, encourage others that can to sign the pledge, or at least have the conversation in your boardroom about signing the pledge. Next slide, please. Right, Greg, what's this takeaway message on my t-shirt, please? What am I going to post on social media in the next half an hour? Hashtag.
Yeah, I'm a hero.
Oh,
everyone on this call that's not maybe in that 17% is actually a circular economy hero. So and we need heroes, because at the end of the day, we are all four of us on this call are service providers to those heroes who say, I want to do something differently. I want to make a change. My kids will not be happy with me if I've not done something in this overly consumptive, carbon emitting world. I can do something. I'm a hero.
Lovely that. I forget all the extra words in the paragraph, that I'm a hero. I'm taking it, mate. Thank you. The contact details for me, because John would just pass it to me anyway. Bill and Greg are on the slides. If you're all stuck and don't know which way to turn, or your website ain't giving you an answer, talk to us. We're founding members. We'll get the other founding members involved. We'll engage you in the process. We'll answer your questions. So come on, knock on our door. Those emails will be answerable. Bill, what's my hashtag takeaway message? I'll put it on the back for you.
I'd say, what's stopping you? I'd ask a question.
Nice. Provocative. Thank you. And John, I'm giving you the final word. What is the hashtag on my t-shirt?
Thank you, Adam. Well, very quickly, I'm a always an optimist. And Greg, I'm hopeful that the people that were in that 17%, we can get them out of that 17% and get them higher up the hierarchy, let's say. So let's fingers crossed for that. I think, Adam, mine would be a simple one, which is just think reuse. I think there's always an opportunity, to say before, when you're disposing of something, when you're procuring something, think reuse. And if it's not that, it's even simpler. It's contact Adam.
Sounds like I'm going to be busy. Listen, chaps, you've been brilliant. I think reuse is great, by the way, because it almost comes back to one of the pledges that we were thinking about starting this initiative with, which was about donate. The idea that as a business, if you put it out for donation into a different system, it's not a waste, it's not caught by waste legislation, and then the opportunities are, as Eddie Izzard used to say, endless. So my hashtag takeaway is get on with it. Chaps, you've been awesome. Audience, you've been better. I didn't get all your questions answered. I'm sorry, but it is only a 59-minute session. But what I promised to do is to circulate all of the questions to all of the panelists, which means John is going to delegate to me again. And we'll get you some answers posted out to everybody that's registered over the next couple of weeks. In the meantime, we'll be developing the website further. And I think somebody's written in, we need costed case studies and great examples, because that's what's going to drive behavior. We'll get them on the website too. So thank you very much for joining us. A final plug, because I can't do my job without plugging another webinar, because I like a webinar. We've got two coming up. One's about the task force that Greg's alluded to today. We're busy filming that soon, and that should be quite interesting, looking at what we hope to see and expect from a growth plan. And secondly, we're going to do one on simpler recycling, because for those of you that are involved in business, you've already got simpler recycling in England, and we're quite interested to know and how well did it roll out. But more importantly, all the local authorities and therefore all the households go live in April. Fun and games, isn't it? Right, that's me done. It's been an absolute pleasure. I'm Dr. Adam Reid. I'm about to go and have a lie down. My panelists are going to go and probably talk behind my back. Audience, have a great Friday. And if you listen to this back while you're doing the ironing and having a cup of coffee, then I hope you had a good weekend. Goodbye.